big news for President Donald Trump yesterday, a big win for President Donald Trump yesterday as the Supreme Court rules in his favor, a very big decision, 5-4 in Trump's favor. Now, this was in regard to the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 that Trump is using. This is the one that King Boasberg, Judge James Boasberg, decided was unconstitutional because it was going to keep these violent criminals, these Venezuelan Tren de Agua criminals, they was going to keep them out of the country. And Judge Boasberg is like, what are you talking about? We got to keep these criminals here. You can't be using some kind of obscure ruling to keep them out of our country. We want them in the American families' neighborhoods. So Boasberg did everything in his power to make sure these violent criminals stayed in America. And so then you had the appellate court. They ruled with the activist lunatic. They voted 2-1 in favor of the activist judge to keep Trump from deporting these violent Venezuelan criminals out of the country. As crazy as that is, now Boasberg was telling them, turn those flights around and bring those criminals back. Trump did not do that. The criminals stayed where they are in that Supermax prison down there in El Salvador. But so now the Supreme Court comes out yesterday with a ruling 5-4 in favor of President Donald Trump, meaning he can continue to use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to keep getting these people, these vicious, violent criminals, these illegal aliens out of our country. Now, here's the disappointing thing about this, and it's you had a 5-4 ruling. The justices that ruled in favor were John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh. The one that this judge, Amy Coney Barrett, seems to be getting worse and worse. Now, it says she may have dissented in part, aligning with the liberal justices on certain aspects, but she was a no on this. And she is just continuing to be a huge disappointment. And it's amazing because the Democrats cried and kicked and screamed when Trump tried. They said, he just tried to shove her in there at the last minute. They didn't want her in there. It looks like she's worked to their benefit. I mean, she's doing more help for the Democrats than she is for the Republicans by far, and it just seems like she's a big disappointment. Anyway, overall, this is a good ruling. It should have been a 6-3 ruling, but it was a 5-4 ruling. One way or the other, we can continue the deportations of these Venezuelan migrants out of the country. But don't think that this Boasberg is going to go away quietly into the night now. He's not just going to stand by and watch these violent criminals get kicked out of America. Oh, no. He is going to be standing up for these violent criminals and continuing to do whatever he can. He's going to be pushing for some kind of hearing or some kind of whatever you call it, follow-up on this to see if he can get the Supreme Court to hear him out and win his case on an appeal, I guess, whatever he's going to do here. But he is not going to go away quietly. He is going to do everything he can to keep the violent criminals in your neighborhood, just like any good left-wing lunatic would be trying to do. So I'm going to have Senator Blackburn on the podcast to talk about some of this stuff. I know, last week I had Senator Marshall on the podcast, and because a lot of the words on the street here, a lot of people on X keep saying impeach for these activist judges, but Senator Marshall saying last week that impeachment ain't going to go nowhere. You need 67 votes in the Senate. We ain't going to cut the mustard. So it seems like it's going to be the Supreme Court, which now we finally got a little something from it. Senator Blackburn, I should say, holding a hearing on this to try to stop these activist judges. And it is the biggest storm we have right now. And President Trump's firing on all cylinders. And the biggest storm we have on our side right now is these activist judges. So we can get them out of the way. It's going to be clear sailing right into the golden age. And that is exactly where President Donald Trump is taking us.
You're listening to the